It's Colleen Schmidt, once again from Divination Counseling Service, here to present to you the moon ingress into Gemini. So on May 22nd of the year 2020, we are going to, at 9:37 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the moon will then cross into the next sign. So as we've talked about in previous videos relating to the moon ingress is a predictive chart that maybe only lasts a couple of days because the moon moves really quickly. And you really are only looking at this when it's at that 0 degree point, when it's crossing into the next sign. So here we see up in the 11th house, and get my cursor out, and we have here the moon in the 11th house along with Adamite and the sun. So we are still feeling restricted. However, we'll talk about that restriction. It is the 11th house, which for a lot of people will feel like goals are being met or they're starting to achieve something. And I want to point that out, but I also want to, because the 11th house is really important because it's an important house to crop up in, especially since we've been looking so much down at the very bottom of the chart to now have an 11th house placement for the moon. It's pretty exciting, actually. But so people might be feeling better, but this is an interesting configuration, okay? So I want you to look at this. Okay, so right here, that in that 11th house, here we go, we have the moon Adamite at 136 and the sun at 154. Well, I believe it's roughly 2 degrees. I could check my software just to be sure, but I believe that this is a new moon event also, because I've written about it. I don't think I remember the time, but I think it was just a couple hours later, actually. And so what makes this all so significant is the fact that the 22nd of May 2020 is also the new moon chart. And what that means is the sun and the moon are coming together. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that, and this is great because you got Venus here, you got Mercury here. They're not an aspect of it, but they did happen to continue to fall into that 11th house. But that sun and Adamitas, well, Adamitas says we're still being restricted. We're still holding back. And we should. We should. And I know I discussed this on another new moon. But there are a lot of factors. Let's look at this right here in the 12th house and the cusp of the 12th house. So make note that one of the things that we need to be aware of is that Hygeia Vesta is that we do still need to maintain distancing from our contacts, the 12th house. And 12th house also indicates that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. So I know that a lot of people probably will not be abiding by all rules. Then it comes to this, what I like to see is Hidalgo. Do we speak out about this, what we're seeing with these contacts? What do we do? Okay, so it's just really interesting. I wanted to point that out. So let's move on. I digress. Let's talk a little bit more about this moon. So this moon is ruled by Mercury. And this moon, well, let's go back to the aspects of the moon. Let's look at my report, which should be all set. Yes. So here we have my report of the moon, and look at this. Trine Jupiter, trine Saturn, trine Pluto, trine Pallas. We're really coming up with some good, ideas so that we can expand carefully, okay, so that we can work. But this is all transforming how we think. Maybe something that we're not so aware of. We're not aware of how much this is going to transform our lives. Okay, so the thing I also spent a little bit of time on here with my article is this idea that we got a moon square Mars. Okay, so with moon square Mars, and the other one that I thought was pretty interesting, oh, and I'll get to that in the dial, is, okay, so let's just start with this moon square Mars. Okay, Moon square Mars is not great, really, because it still means there's an underlying tension. There may be suspicion. Emotionally, we're angry, but we're not really maybe sure why. So you get the sense that we're getting what we want, but we're not getting what we want. So that's going to play into all of what's going on because we are still restricted. Both the moon, the sun and the moon, and then we have again Adamitas. So when we look at this, we're still heavily under the Adamitas energy, or for people who maybe don't follow that, realize that this Gemini is trine Saturn. Okay, so I love the way my teacher said it. We think of trines as being easier. Yeah, it's just easier being restricted. The that maybe we're getting used to it, or some things are starting to develop that are great outlets for it. Whatever it is, realize that we're at this discovery phase with all of this. But I love the way Martha says this, and I know I've quoted this before, but when one planet says something, say Saturn, the moon will swear to it. If the moon says something, Saturn will swear to it, which ultimately means the public is handling being restricted, or they're learning their lessons, so to speak. And we are learning many lessons. Okay, so before I get to the dial, I want to talk about, well, actually, I want to go to the dial now. So let's look at a dial. I'm going to start introducing all the different ways that I work, okay? Because, again, these are great tools for anyone out there that's already working with astrology. This is awesome stuff. So I switched to a dial here, and I put it on the sun, okay? And I want to point out the sun equals, this is Circe. This is the asteroid of helping others or getting help in our 11th hour. And surely I would like to think that that stimulus that they keep talking about could get a little bit further. Who knows, It's a Circe. It's also a Mercury, and I'll talk about that. But I want to also talk about a couple other things I see as midpoints here. One of the ways that I read things, and we can do this with the moon as well, but I like looking at the sun. Remember that they're kind of sitting together and recognizing that the transformations, Pluto, Hades, whoa, it's tough. It's a disease that's causing this transformation. There's our Hades. But it's also this, well, we got to look at the future. Okay, and there's a struggle there, but it doesn't have to be a struggle. I honestly don't know why politicians do that. Why do you come out with lawsuits on the other side instead of compromise? Why not compromise from the get-go? Why does it have to be like a big headline? But in any event, I think that we are learning that. At least the small people are. And so we're implementing that, but we're still dealing with Adamite here, Adamitas, the asteroid, Adamitas, the trans-Neptunian. So we're still restricted. I'll just take a peek here at our moon. Okay, so moon is telling us that, this is, artists in particular are probably flourishing right now. I just heard a wonderful news expose on a musician who's decided to do drive-in style, which is just incredible, thinking out of the box, which is really the stuff that I talked about when I had done, I don't know if it was for this one or the one before, but certainly it was around now. It was the idea of alternatives, thinking outside the box. I think that's really, really important. That's where our benefits lie. That's where a lot of this lies. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to talk about, and this one's getting long, I have to figure out how to not do that. But a couple of things. First of all, I talked about that midheaven Pluto. I also want to talk about when we were at the sun, the other midpoint, which was node Apollon. Okay, that's a lot of connections, particularly in business, but that's like having numerous. Okay, so we're transforming that and we're doing well with it. Okay, we have to believe that, but we have to continue to strive for that. So then, let me go back to the moon. Okay, whoops, there we go. There, whoop. It's funny how I did it. Now I'm not doing it. There it is. Okay, so in the moon, it does refer to the fact that this is about our connections. And so, there's not a lot of aspects on it. The aspects are the trines. So we're not looking at a lot of great deal of midpoints, but I want to point something out here. This is we're studying. This is a new one here. This is Eris. Okay. And Eris is also forming a midpoint on this whole thing. I thought that was pretty interesting. And that's chaos and confusion. And I think that being locked up has given some people a loss of perspective. But I just wanted to point that out. So the last thing I want to look at, okay, the energy that's ruling this particular ingress moon is Gemini. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is communications. Be wary of communications, okay? Because Neptune is running at this point with, or is square to. And I want to look at that. So here we go. Let's look at Mercury. Here we go. 20 degrees of Gemini. Okay? Neptune we know is in Pisces. Oh yeah, they are squaring. So here we are. So we've got this Pisces 20 degree. Oh yeah, too, from the 9th house. Changes. It's talking about how we're scared, but we've got to make money. But one of the things I want to point out about this, because I think it's really important, first of all, there's disappointment associated with this. So all those people running and jumping and thinking, oh, it's going back to, no, it's not. It's not going back to normal. It's going to be out there like ghost town. So people are going to be opening their businesses, and business is going to be not great, okay? So again, I'm not sure what people expected, but understand that also, with that Venus, Neptune, are we being told lies regarding finances? And this is where I go back to stimulus checks and oversight committees and things like that. But we have to think about that stuff. And the other thing that I want to, and that's in this mix here. Eris is in here because it is forming a midpoint. So it's playing in. It's forming a midpoint, actually, Black Moon Lilith, which is talking about how we've never been here before. So it's obvious that that's causing confusion. Now, the other thing, and the very last thing I'm going to leave you with, because this is getting long, is that the Aries point. Let's talk about the Aries point, because I can. Okay, so the Aries point, which also is not far from that node, but here it is. The node, our pride, and we don't know everything. Okay, because up there is Calypso. And Calypso is an asteroid that tells you there's a lot of kind of like unknown missing information. That, by the way, is causing Eris. But I did want to leave you with that. So just kind of one thing led into another, and I had to complete my story. So let's get past the chaos if we can, but let's accept the fact that chaos is a part of our growth, and right now it's something we are dealing with. With that, if you'd like to contact me, please get a hold of me through the website divinationcounselingservice.org. And also like, share. I really do hope to increase popularity. I realize mine is an educational site, it's a little bit different. But anyone out there interested in astrology, knows of other people in astrology, this is a great way to start kind of upping the ante on your astrology readings. So, with that said, until we meet again, happy readings.